Hi, I'm Steve. You can call me Steve. I'm recording this on a digital camcorder a little bigger than my fist. I can edit the video myself on my desktop computer and upload it over a broadband connection to a digital streaming service that's accessible nearly everywhere in the world except China. I can do all this from the comfort of my own home. This means my content can be seen by anyone with an internet connection and the knowledge to enter the right search terms to outwit YouTube's algorithms. When I was a kid, if someone had told me that one day I'd be doing this, I would never have believed them. Back then, the internet just didn't exist. TV only had 4 channels, and my family didn't even have a VCR. Kids, if you don't know what a VCR is, ask your parents. This is an illustration of just how quickly technology has advanced within my lifetime. It's an exciting time to be alive, but not everybody thinks that. Fear of new technology is almost as old as technology itself. I'm sure the first time someone used a bow and arrow 15,000 years or so ago, older people huffed at it and loudly proclaimed they'd stick to throwing rocks. In the early 1800s in England, there was an organization called the Luddites that went around smashing machines in factories. The motivation and ideology of the Luddites were broader and more nuanced than I have time to go into here, but the term has come to refer somewhat inaccurately to someone who opposes technology. I will admit to being something of a modern Luddite myself. This is my phone. It's not a smartphone or even a cell phone. It's the handset of my landline, and the rest of it is plugged into my wall. At least it's not a rotary phone. Kids, if you don't know what a rotary phone is, ask your grandparents. I think I'm the only person under 50 who doesn't have a cell or a mobile, for those of you in the UK or Australia. My reasons for this are varied, some based on cost and some based on sheer stubborn contrariness. However, I can recognize the value of having a means of communication you can take anywhere you go, and I'm not in the habit of smashing my friends' phones. Technologies themselves are not inherently good or bad. That comes from how they're used or implemented. Ideally, a technology should bring the greatest amount of good to the largest number of people. This requires careful planning and consideration as well as risk management. When I talked about chemicals, I said that some were beneficial, some were harmful, and they should be considered on a case-by-case basis. That goes for technology as well, but it's more complicated than that. R&D programs intended to produce weapons or other technologies for warfare will often have peaceful spin-offs. The basic structure of the internet came out of a research agency run by the US military, and no other invention of the 20th century has changed the world the way the internet has. Conversely, technology intended to make things better will often have unintended consequences and end up making things worse. Fear of technology is something that's usually ascribed to older people. When I was younger, the common joke illustrating this was that your grandparents' VCR was constantly flashing 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Again, kids, ask your parents. The subtext is that old people are confused by newfangled things and don't learn how to use them. This is somewhat unfair. My parents are in their 70s and my dad has embraced modern technology more than I have. My mom communicates by email, and both of them are tech savvy enough that their devices have not been compromised by viruses or other malware. I'm aware that the plural of anecdote is not data, and that the older you get, the less likely you are to embrace new things. To use social media as an example of new technology, older people are on the whole much less likely to use it than younger people. I've been avoiding it since my 20s, so I guess I'm ahead of the curve on this one. Anti-technologists will often point to the potential harm or other negative effects of new inventions to justify rejecting them, often ignoring the positives. I mentioned earlier how a technology should bring the greatest amount of good to the largest number of people. That's seldom how it goes. Usually they're intended to bring the greatest amount of dollars to the fewest number of people, or in the case of social media, undermine Western democracy. This last is an example of older people embracing technology but doing so uncritically and without consideration. Baby boomers are the age group most likely to believe disinformation and propaganda. They're also the age group most likely to vote in elections, which explains a lot about the state of the world today. That's technology. It's not inherently good or bad and shouldn't be feared simply because it's new. It should be subjected to risk analysis and not simply implemented in order to turn some Silicon Valley tech bro into a billionaire. Technology has raised the standard of living for billions of people all over the world, but its benefits have not been distributed equally in all areas. On the whole, technology has made the world a better place, but there's still room for improvement. And despite everything I've just said, I'm still not getting a cell phone. Thanks for watching. I've been Steve.